Hello everyone, I welcome you all on the behalf of IEEE VIT Pune student branch to YouTube series of Object-Oriented Programming. Before we start, let's have a look on what are we going to learn today. So first we would be talking about what is programming paradigm. Next we would be talking about what is procedure-oriented programming and object-oriented programming, followed by the difference between them. Lastly, we would be learning about classes and objects. Now, coming back to our first question, that is, what is programming paradigm? But before answering this, some people might be wondering that what is paradigm? So, to answer your question, paradigm is nothing but a typical example or pattern of something. And programming paradigm is basically the classification of programming languages based on its characteristics. There are number of programming paradigms such as procedure oriented programming, object oriented programming, declarative programming, logical programming and many more. But most commonly used programming paradigms are procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming. What is POP? POP is procedure-oriented programming. It is a programming paradigm that is based on subroutines or procedure calls, also known as function. It directly instructs a device on how to finish tasks in logical steps. They consist of sequential steps that perform some specified task. The example of this can be the area function which we have defined here, and it returns the value of area of data type as same as the type of function. What is OOP? OOP is object oriented programming and it is a way of computer programming which is based on the concept of objects. Object contains the data in the form of attributes and code in the form of methods. This approach is used to create a neat and reusable code. It is divided into different objects and every object refers to some or other different functionality. This could be understood by an example of a college going student who has some specified attributes such as name, roll number and division, where roll number, name and division are the objects of students. This will get more clear as we would proceed further with the topics. Now let's discuss about what is the difference between procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming. So the first difference is about the approach. Procedure oriented programming follows top down approach. As the name suggests, it starts at the top and ends at the bottom. It begins with the high level design and ends with the low level design. Whereas object oriented programming follows bottom up approach. It means that it will start with the smallest problem and work through the main problem. The second is division. Procedure-oriented programming is divided into functions, whereas object-oriented programming is divided into objects. Third is access specifiers. Procedure-oriented programming doesn't have any concept of access specifiers. Object-oriented programming has the access specifiers such as public, private, protected, etc. The fourth difference is about the security. In procedure-oriented programming, very less security is available, whereas object-oriented programming provides us with high security due to access specifiers as discussed earlier. In this, private access specifiers provides the highest security. The fifth difference is about the code reusability. In procedure-oriented programming, you can reuse the function but up to some extent only. But in object-oriented programming, code reusability is very high as we can inherit class which reduces the repetitive code. Our next topic is classes. Let's start with an example. We can think of a sketch or prototype of a house. It contains all the details about the floors, windows, etc. And based on this description, the builder builds the house. Let's study about the another example to get this thing more clear. Here, there are picture of some cars and it will have some attributes like its name, model number, color. The value of these attributes will vary from car to car, but the attributes will be in common. So, What is a class? Class is a blueprint or template which will have its own attributes and function as given here. I had made a blueprint of car which will have some attributes like name, model number and color. For this blueprint or class of type car, I have given different values to attributes of cars and can define different brands of cars. So to store these attributes, we will have to make a data type. This data type is nothing but class. Hence, we can say that class is a user defined data type. Now, if I want to define a class, it will have syntax something like this. First, we have to write keyword class followed by the name of class. Then, we have to define the access specifier, that is public, private or protected. Next, the data members and member functions are defined. Data members are the variables or attributes which we want to declare in our class. Member functions or methods are the functions which we define or declare in class. Note that the class always ends with a semicolon. Let's start with the coding part. First, we would write the keyword class followed by its class name and then give the curly braces. Then we would give the access specifier as public. For now, only keep in mind that if access specifier is public, then we can use the data members and functions anywhere in the program. Next, we would add some data members in it. I would first define an array of character type and give it name as car name. And give its size as 50. Next, we would declare the other data member of type int and name it as model number. We would now declare the last data member of class car and give it as name as color. And give it size as 50. And don't forget to add the semicolon at the last of the class. Till now, we understood how to define a class and its member and functions. But how to use these members and functions of class? To use this class and use its variable and functions, we are using something called as objects. Objects are the instance of class. Taking our previous example into consideration, the class car can be used to make instance of various brands of car. Like, for example, the car of different brands like BMW, Audi, Mercedes could be the objects of class car. To declare an object, we use syntax something like this: class name followed by the object name. Now to access the data members and functions of class through objects, we use dot operator with the object. For example, if the name of object is obj and you want to access the member functions with the name print name, then you will have to write obj.printName. Let's continue with the coding part. First, we would declare an array of objects of type car and give the object array name as C and the size of object of array as 3. Then we would add an for loop for the user to take input of variables. Now let's give an output statement so that user should know what he has to give the input. Now to access the data members of class car, we write C of I, that is object at the ith position dot the variable name. that is name. Same would be with the data member model number. C of I dot model number. Now repeating the same procedure for the last variable, that is color. C of I dot color. We are taking the input from user but not printing it. So to print the name of different values of data types of object, we would define a function called as printinfo in class car. Let's not give the return type to the function and write its name as printinfo. And in that function, we would write the output statement as name of car is. We need to simply write here the name of the variable, that is name. Same with the model number. Model number of car is and write here the variable name model number. And for the third variable, write color of car is and give the variable name. And then we are done with the defining of functions. Now to access this function, we need to do the same steps as we did for the data members, that is object name dot function name. For doing this, we need to add an for loop in the main function and then access the printinfo function through the dot operator. We would simply write here the object name, that is C of I, that is the object present at the ith position dot the function name, that is printinfo. We are done with writing of our program. Now we would run it. Let's give the input. We can see that the program is giving us output same as the input which we have given. That's all for the video. Thank you.